The gala shimmered with crystal light and marble floors, but cruelty cut sharper than glass. Olivia Carter, 24, single mom, moved quietly with a tray balanced on one hand. A shareholder leaned back, his voice dripping contempt. "Spill it, you pay. Could you even afford that?" Laughter exploded across the table. Olivia's cheeks warmed, but her hands stayed steady. Her sneakers squeaked softly on the polished floor as she set the glass down. The laughter was meant to bury her, but her eyes caught something on the table. A contract, thick with fine print. Her breath hitched. She'd seen those words before, buried deep in her father's old notes. She stepped closer, voice barely above a whisper, yet heavy as thunder. "Don't sign that." The table froze, silence folding over laughter like a blade. For the first time that night, all eyes were on her. At the head of the table sat William Harrington, 60, a billionaire whose presence carried weight without sound. His beard was trimmed neat, his tailored suit effortless. He hadn't laughed. His eyes lingered on Olivia, tapping his fingers slowly against the contract. Around him, the room erupted with ridicule. A man in a gold chain scoffed. A waitress giving advice? Another snapped, she should stick to pouring drinks. Yet William didn't join in. His silence stretched, unsettling the voices that had moments ago been bold. Olivia, still clutching her tray, kept her gaze steady on him. She knew she didn't belong in chandeliers and marble, not here with power dressed in diamonds. But she also knew what her eyes had caught. William tilted his head slightly, like a man who had heard a warning no one else dared to listen to.
Olivia's heart raced as the words on the contract replayed in her mind. Buried deep, a transfer clause disguised as profit. Her father, Henry Wallace, had warned her of it years ago. He was no ordinary man. He had been a respected economist, a scholar whose quiet brilliance had steered banks and saved companies. He died when she was 16, but his lessons still burned inside her. She remembered sitting at his cluttered desk, him tapping a finger over the exact clause, whispering, "This is a trap. It looks harmless, but it will bleed a company dry in a month." Now, standing in the sea of billionaires, his voice was her armor. Olivia adjusted her grip on the tray, the words rolling silently in her head. This wasn't guessing. She knew. Her father's ghost had given her the sight to see what others missed. The chandelier's glow caught sequins and jewels as socialites leaned in to slice her dignity. One, draped in a red silk gown, sneered. "Her shoes are falling apart. Did she borrow them from the kitchen staff?" Another whispered with mock pity, "She's probably sneaking leftovers for dinner." Laughter rippled, cruel and rehearsed. Olivia's back stiffened. Her black uniform, plain and threadbare, clung loose on her frame, a contrast to their luxury. She moved carefully, napkin folded just so, hands steady as if their scorn couldn't touch her. Her silence grew heavier with every insult, a defiance louder than shouting. A shareholder smirked, "Pathetic, she doesn't even know what a merger is." Olivia didn't flinch. Her soft brown eyes swept the table once, calm and unbroken. In a room designed to bury her in humiliation, she carried herself as if humiliation couldn't reach her.
Adam Brooks, mid-40s, a corporate lawyer with sharp glasses and sharper arrogance, leaned forward. His tone was cutting, rehearsed. "Reading isn't understanding. This is grown-up business." The table laughed with relief, clinging to his words like a rope. Olivia set another glass down, her posture unyielding. Adam smirked, enjoying the power of dismissal. He adjusted his tie, certain he had silenced her. Across the room, a socialite muttered, "She probably thinks this is a movie." More laughter followed. Olivia inhaled quietly, her chest tight but steady. The words of her father echoed again, reminding her of the truth hidden in plain sight. She leaned closer, voice level, but quiet enough to slice through the noise. Page 47,
line 12. Her calm contradicted the storm swirling around her. For the first time, Adam blinked, his confidence slipping. She wasn't making noise, she was making precision. The laughter thinned when a shareholder with a thin mustache snatched the contract. His fingers fumbled, his eyes darting down the page. Silence spread as he found the line Olivia had spoken of. His face drained, lips trembling. "Impossible," he muttered, barely audible. The crowd hushed, curiosity outweighing ridicule. Olivia stood motionless, tray balanced on one hand, her other hand brushing against the folded apron at her waist. The room's hum had shifted. Her whisper, once dismissed, now held gravity. William Harrington leaned forward slightly, his finger pausing on the page. He didn't speak, but his stillness commanded the room more than any shout. The smirks began to falter. A socialite's laughter died mid-breath. Adam Brooks cleared his throat too loudly, a nervous cover. Olivia hadn't raised her voice, yet she'd cracked the surface of billion-dollar confidence with a single line.
Alan Foster, the hotel manager, hurried forward. Thin, anxious, with a perpetual half-smile, he tugged at Olivia's arm. "Enough! You're making a scene." His voice was low, urgent, pleading. Around them, the crowd jeered louder. "She's nobody!" A man in a loud tie shouted, "Back to dishes, sweetheart!" The weight of their contempt pressed like a stone. Olivia turned her head slightly, her eyes locking on Alan, then sweeping the crowd. Her voice, soft but steady, cut clean. "Nobody saw what I did." The words hung heavier than the chandelier above them. A hush slipped through pockets of the crowd. She freed her arm gently, tray still balanced. Alan froze, unnerved by the quiet certainty in her tone. William Harrington's gaze deepened, as though her defiance was revealing more than the contract ever could. Silence became Olivia's blade, sharper than any insult. Nicholas Crane, early 50s, the opposing CEO, rose from his chair. Broad-shouldered, jaw square, eyes cold, he exuded arrogance like cologne. His voice was harsh, designed to dominate. "She's lying. If she were that smart, she'd be on Wall Street, not pouring wine." His smirk returned power to the hesitant crowd. "She's wasting our time. Move on." Several shareholders nodded, clinging to his confidence. Olivia met his eyes. She said nothing, but the calm in her stare unsettled him. Crane's words were louder, but hers lingered deeper. A woman in a diamond necklace muttered, "It's ridiculous. A waitress halting billions?" Olivia's fingers brushed the edge of the contract, her touch deliberate. Her silence wasn't weakness, it was a quiet standoff against a man used to never being challenged. And though Crane sneered, there was an edge of unease in his voice.
Olivia reached into her apron and pulled out a folded paper, yellowed, edges soft from years of wear. She laid it beside the contract. Gasps rustled across the table. Written in neat slanted handwriting was a warning. Never sign if you see clause XY. At the bottom, the signature, Henry Wallace. A woman with sharp cheekbones and a pearl necklace froze. "My God, Professor Wallace, he saved my firm once." Recognition rippled through the room. Suddenly, Olivia wasn't just a waitress. She was the daughter of a man who had shaped industries. Crane's face tightened, fury flashing in his eyes. Adam Brooks shifted uncomfortably, his smirk now brittle. Olivia kept her gaze steady, hand resting lightly on the page. Her father's words lived through her, and now the room knew it. The laughter that once cut her down had dissolved into stunned silence. From the corner, a woman with a clipboard stepped forward. Harrington's assistant, usually invisible, her hand shook as she clutched the board. Her voice cracked. "She's right, I saw it too." The room stilled, shocked by the confession. For hours she had remained silent, but now her truth cracked the room wide open. Crane erupted. "Lies! She's protecting her!" His voice trembled with anger, but the foundation beneath him was weakening. William Harrington opened his eyes, resting his palm on the contract. Around him, whispers turned to murmurs, murmurs to sharp breaths.
Olivia stood motionless, her quiet strength unchanged, her father's note lying like a weapon between fortunes. For the first time all evening, the crowd wasn't laughing at her. They were looking at Nicholas Crane, the man who now looked desperate, cornered, and suddenly very small.
The gala hall had grown heavy, the air so tense it felt like glass about to shatter. William Harrington sat perfectly still, his gray eyes closed as though weighing centuries instead of seconds. His silence was unnerving, more commanding than any verdict. Across the table, Nicholas Crane slammed his fist. Coincidence! A waitress parroting her father's ghost doesn't make her right. His voice cracked against the marble walls. Adam Brooks shuffled his papers, sweat gathering at his temple. Socialites whispered behind jeweled hands, unsure which side to lean toward. Olivia Carter stood unmoving, tray resting at her side, her brown eyes steady. She didn't argue, didn't plead. She had already spoken, and her truth now lingered in the air, demanding to be reckoned with. William opened his eyes finally, a flicker of thought visible, but no decision yet. The room waited with him, trembling. The hesitation was fuel for cruelty. A woman in a silver gown whispered, "She's fishing for tips," and her companion laughed nervously. Another shareholder muttered loud enough to sting, "Luck doesn't make you wise." Their words tried to drag Olivia back down, but their voices wavered, like people desperate to recover balance. Olivia adjusted her tray on the side table, movements precise, her face calm as marble. She didn't return their mockery. Her silence stretched wider, heavy enough that the socialites' giggles faltered mid-breath. A man with a loud tie sneered, "You'll never be one of us." Olivia turned her head slightly, her voice even and soft. "I don't need to be you." The laughter broke into fragments, uncertain, brittle. She didn't shout, didn't fight, yet the room felt as if she had just thrown down a gauntlet no one expected. The crowd's cruelty swelled, desperate to snuff her defiance. Then, in the chaos, another waiter brushed past, his elbow nudging Olivia's tray. A glass tipped dangerously, spinning at the edge. Gasps broke out. A man's loud laugh pierced the tension. "See, she can't even balance a tray." But Olivia's hand flashed steady, catching the glass before it fell. The sharp clink rang across the marble floor, not of failure, but of control. She placed the glass back, firm and unshaken. Her eyes swept the table once, voice quiet, controlled. Control is everything. The words pierced through brittle laughter like steel through silk. A hush spread, the first true crack in the arrogance that had filled the room. For the first time, it wasn't Olivia who looked clumsy or out of place. It was the billionaires, their laughter suddenly sounding desperate. Olivia's chest rose as memory bled into present. She was 12 again, sitting in Henry Wallace's dim study, papers stacked high. He had tapped a pen against a clause, his voice calm and certain. "If they laugh at you, let truth speak louder than their noise." His words, quiet as they were, had carried more weight than rooms full of arrogant men. Now, in the glitter of chandeliers, she stood with those words burning in her blood. The insults that had swarmed her moments ago lost their edge. She wasn't invisible. She wasn't small. She was Henry Wallace's daughter. Olivia let her breath steady. The ghosts of her father's lessons were alive in her, speaking louder than Nicholas Crane's booming denials, louder than Adam Brooks's thin excuses, louder than the jeweled laughter that was already breaking apart under its own weight.
Adam Brooks tried to recover. He flipped pages in the contract, voice too high, too sharp. "There's nothing unusual, standard language." His words stuttered as his fingers stumbled across the clause. His cheeks flushed crimson. This isn't what it looks like." The confidence he had worn like armor slipped off him, exposing sweat and fear. A shareholder leaned over his shoulder, lips tightening as he read. Murmurs spread, no longer aimed at Olivia, but at Adam himself. "You missed this," someone snapped. Adam tugged at his collar, eyes darting between Harrington and Crane. His smirk was gone, shredded by Olivia's quiet accuracy. Olivia said nothing. Her silence mocked him better than words ever could. Adam's polished image cracked completely. In a room where power came from certainty, his collapse was louder than any insult thrown at her. Nicholas Crane rose again, face red, jaw clenching. "We move forward anyway. No waitress decides billions." His voice thundered across the chandeliers, his hands slamming the contract. "This merger saves us, and no ghost story changes that." His rage was raw, his mask unraveling. Olivia didn't move. Her hand brushed against her apron pocket where her father's note still lay, its presence steadying her like a stone against the storm. Socialites nodded nervously, clinging to Crane's confidence, but the desperation in his tone betrayed him. William Harrington's calm silence was a mirror Crane couldn't shatter. Olivia lifted her chin, her eyes locking with Crane's. He sneered, but there was something behind his stare now: fear. He wasn't only fighting her, he was fighting the truth already spreading like cracks through the marble floor beneath his polished shoes.
The room divided before Olivia's eyes. On one side, Crane's supporters barked, "She's nothing. She'll ruin this night." On the other, whispers rose of belief, of recognition. "She's Henry Wallace's daughter. The handwriting was his." The gala became a battlefield of murmurs and accusations. Diamond earrings glittered as their wearers whispered frantically. Waiters slowed, sensing something greater than spilled wine unfolding. William Harrington remained silent at the head of the table, but his eyes were sharp, recording every breath, every tremor. Olivia stood firm, hands relaxed at her sides, the storm circling her yet never touching her. For the first time, the battle wasn't hers alone. Truth had begun to work its way into the cracks. People weren't laughing anymore. They were choosing sides, and Nicholas Crane's iron grip on the room was weakening. His smirk looked strained, fragile. Alan Foster tugged Olivia toward the edge of the room, voice low, eyes frantic. "Stop this now. You'll lose your job. You'll ruin yourself." He was pale, sweat darkening his collar. Olivia looked at him, her voice soft but solid. Some things cost more than a paycheck. Her words shook him. He had lived his life bending to wealth, bowing to arrogance. Her defiance was a language he didn't understand. Alan stepped back, his hand falling uselessly to his side. Around them, guests watched, murmurs building into uneasy waves. Olivia's voice, though low, had reached further than Alan's desperate pleas. William Harrington's gaze lingered on her longer still, as if those words carried the exact courage he had been searching for in a room full of cowards.
Olivia leaned closer to Harrington, her voice steady, nearly intimate. "If you sign, you lose everything in 30 days. If you don't, you lose nothing but their approval." Her words struck like steel wrapped in silk. The billionaire's eyes narrowed, tapping the contract with one finger. Around them, or arrogance. The room leaned forward, waiting. Olivia stepped back, her job done, her voice already heavy enough to tilt the weight of the room. Crane's rage filled the silence, but it no longer mattered. His volume couldn't erase her whisper. The tension burst with one sound, paper ripping. William Harrington tore the contract in half, the noise echoing like thunder in the marble hall. Gasps rippled across the tables. Crystal glasses trembled in shaking hands. Socialites stared, mouths open. Adam Brooks dropped his papers, his career crumbling with them. Nicholas Crane froze, his smirk vanishing, his empire cut in half with the contract. Harrington rose, voice calm but carrying. "I will not sign ruin dressed as profit." He glanced once at Olivia, a silent acknowledgement. She stood still, chest tight, her father's note burning in her pocket. The room that had laughed at her now bowed under the weight of her truth. For the first time that night, she wasn't invisible, she was undeniable. Crane stormed toward the doors, fury spilling behind him. But the night no longer belonged to him.
The contract's torn halves lay scattered across white linen like bones. The gala dissolved into chaos, socialites whispering, shareholders snapping at one another. Adam Brooks slumped in his chair, the smirk that once armored him gone entirely. Nicholas Crane stormed toward the doors, fury spilling from every step. But even his voice couldn't pierce the silence William Harrington left behind. Olivia Carter stood still, tray abandoned on the side table, her black uniform wrinkled, but her posture unbroken. A young server passed her with wide eyes, whispering, "You just saved billions." Olivia didn't respond. Her father's warning still echoed in her mind. The moment wasn't triumph, it was survival. For the first time that evening, the power in the room wasn't in diamonds or suits. It was in the quiet strength of a waitress who had refused to stay silent. By dawn, the story had left the glitter of the gala and spilled into the streets. Headlines flashed across screens. Merger halted by Waitress. Clips of laughter aimed at Olivia spread online, humiliating those who had mocked her. Social media erupted, #SheWasRight, climbing the trends. People replayed the torn contract, the whispers, the insults. Wealth had become weakness. Arrogance had become ridicule. Olivia watched it from a bus window, her daughter's small hand in hers, the city's noise blurring past. She didn't smile. The world was noisy, but her truth had never been about applause. In apartments and diners, strangers replayed the clip of a plain young woman whispering, "Don't sign that." It resonated like a quiet rebellion. For the powerful, it was embarrassment. For everyone else, it was hope that silence could cut through noise.
Adam Brooks was the first to topple. His mocking sneer at Olivia circulated online, replayed with captions and outrage. By noon, his firm released a statement. He was dismissed, no explanation offered. In private, colleagues whispered about negligence, about arrogance that blinded him to danger. Adam sat alone in his office, glasses slipping down his nose, staring at the empty shelves he had once filled with awards. For years, he had prided himself on silencing others with sharp words. Now, silence swallowed him whole. Across town, Olivia folded her daughter's laundry, unaware her quiet defiance had ended a man's career. She hadn't sought revenge, she had sought truth. And the truth had its own way of rewriting reputations, sometimes louder than any courtroom, sometimes faster than any jury. Nicholas Crane's empire cracked within days. Documents leaked, emails, transfers, hidden trails tying him directly to the fraudulent clause. Stock prices plunged, investors fled. Television screens replayed his outburst, his red face shouting against a whisper that had already stripped him of power. In boardrooms, his name became a warning, not a weapon. Olivia walked past a storefront where his face scrolled across a news ticker, her daughter tugging at her hand. "Who's that man?" the girl asked softly. Olivia looked once, then down again. A man who forgot that truth doesn't stay buried. Her words were quiet, but they held the weight of finality. Crane's collapse wasn't just corporate, it was personal. He had mocked her existence. Now his was unraveling in front of millions.
The glamorous women who had mocked Olivia's shoes and whispered about leftovers found themselves cornered by truth. Videos of their laughter spread online, captions framing them as the faces of cruelty. Brands withdrew partnerships, invitations to galas dried up. One posted an apology on social media, her diamond necklace still glinting in the photo, but the comments shredded her sincerity. Olivia didn't seek them out, didn't even watch. She folded napkins at her kitchen table, her daughter coloring at her side. The same hands that had trembled at insults now rested steady. Her strength wasn't revenge, it was persistence. As the world ridiculed the ones who had ridiculed her, Olivia lived quietly. Power wasn't in applause, it was in surviving with dignity intact, in knowing she had already won without speaking another word. One evening, William Harrington arrived at the hotel again. His presence silenced the lobby before he even spoke. He approached Olivia, still in her plain uniform, her tray ready for another night of work. "Sit," he said softly, his voice carrying authority. She hesitated, but obeyed. He set a folder in front of her. Inside, a contract, but this time, it was hers. "From this day forward, you are no longer a waitress. You are my financial advisor." The words fell like stone into water, rippling across every listener. Gasps, whispers, disbelief. Olivia's chest tightened, hands trembling in her lap. She had been mocked as invisible, yet now she was chosen as indispensable. She didn't cry, didn't cheer. She nodded once, quietly, her father's lessons echoing inside. Truth doesn't need titles, it only needs courage.
At home, Olivia tucked her daughter into bed. The small apartment was dim, walls bare but warm. The girl pressed a crayon drawing into Olivia's hand. A stick figure in an apron, a cape drawn behind her shoulders. Above it, scrawled letters, "Mom, my hero." Olivia's throat tightened. She placed the paper on the shelf beside Henry Wallace's old books, her daughter's laughter echoing down the hall. Wealth had mocked her, power had humiliated her, but none of it outweighed this moment. Her father's lessons had guided her, but her daughter's trust carried her forward. Olivia kissed her forehead and whispered, "Sleep, baby. Tomorrow is ours." The cape on the paper glowed faintly under the lamp's light. She didn't need marble halls to be powerful. She needed only the eyes of the child who believed in her. Weeks later, Olivia entered a boardroom in a simple gray blazer. Shareholders, some the same who had mocked her, shifted in their seats as she sat down. She didn't posture, didn't flaunt. She folded her hands, her silence commanding attention more than any speech. Nicholas Crane's empty chair was a reminder of arrogance undone. William Harrington introduced her simply, "My advisor." Murmurs rippled, but none dared laugh. When Olivia finally spoke, her words were measured, precise, the same whispering strength that had torn apart billions. Every head leaned forward, every pen paused. The waitress they had dismissed now guided fortunes. She didn't seek to dominate, she sought to protect, and in that quiet steadiness, the room learned something wealth had blinded them to. Power wasn't in shouting, it was in knowing when a whisper could rewrite everything.
After the meeting, a woman approached, older, elegant, with eyes dampened by memory. "Your father saved my firm once," she confessed, her voice trembling. "His notes stopped a deal that would have ruined us. Seeing you tonight, it's as if he's still here." Olivia's breath caught. She hadn't expected her father's reach to echo this far. She bowed her head, her voice soft. "He taught me that truth always outlives noise." The woman clasped her hand, tears shining. Olivia left the building that night beneath a sky burning orange. Her father's lessons weren't buried in books. They lived in her spine, in her silence, in the way she refused to bow to arrogance. She realized she was not only his daughter, she was his legacy. That night, Olivia walked home with her daughter. The city buzzed, neon and noise, but their footsteps were quiet. Her daughter tugged at her sleeve. "Mom, why did you say, 'don't sign'?" Olivia smiled faintly, bending low. "Because sometimes the truth whispers, and if we don't listen, we lose everything." Her daughter nodded, gripping her hand tighter. They passed a newsstand, headlines about Nicholas Crane's collapse plastered across front pages. Olivia didn't stop. The whispers of strangers, the applause of crowds, none of it mattered. She carried her father's note in her pocket, her daughter's drawing in her bag. Wealth had tried to define her. Power had tried to erase her. But her whisper had outlived them all. Under the streetlight's glow, she leaned down and whispered, "Truth doesn't need a stage. It only needs courage." And then, she walked on.